Good morning. I recently finished reading The Ladies of the Secret Circus by Constance. So the main character Laura comes from a family that used to own and run a pretty famous circus, only they closed it down some years ago, ostensibly because her mother didn't want to run a circus anymore, and also because circuses weren't really making the kind of money that they used to. But it was also partly because her mother wanted them to live a normal life. Like the women in their family all seem to have inherited some magical abilities. Like, for instance, Laura can tell her wedding dress to reshape itself. So the story begins when Laura is about to get married, only things start going wrong almost right away. Like, the day they were supposed to hold the ceremony, her fiancé disappeared. She's not really sure what happened. People think at first that he didn't really want the responsibility and ran away, but his car was discovered abandoned on a certain bend in the road, and it's the scene is very peculiar for a number of reasons. And one of the major reasons was because 30 years ago in their same town, another man disappeared under almost the exact same circumstances. The car, not only is it in the same place on the road that the previous disappearance happened, even the positioning of the car is exactly the same. So there's definitely something fishy going on, especially since the road where it was found was actually had connections to the circus and stuff in the past. Laura starts to try to figure out what happened to her fiancé, and her investigations lead her into looking into this circus that was rumored to have existed back around the 1920s. So there are a lot of names for this circus, it's sometimes called the Secret Circus. It was also called the Devil's Circus in Paris, where I guess it was last seen performing, and it has a number of unusual qualities. For instance, the circus moved around. It didn't actually have a set location, and people you had to have a ticket to this circus in order to even be able to see it. Its tickets were greatly coveted in Paris at the time. That was considered a really prestigious thing to have gone. But there's also stories that it was kind of a darkly magical place, and you find out that it really is a devil circus, with performers that are, damned souls from hell and so on. And Laura's family has many connections to it, tracing back to her, I think it was her great-grandmother, Cecile. And you get her story intertwined with Cecile's story as Laura learns more about her own family history and the curse that has kind of followed them ever since then. So Cecile was one of the performers from the circus. So actually there were a lot of things I liked about this story. I think it has a really nice balance of that building mystery as you dig into the pasts of these women and how their lives intertwine and influence each other, and also has that juxtaposition that I tend to enjoy of more real world scenery with some of the really bizarre stuff when you start to look into the story of this really peculiar circus. So overall, I think it was really well put together that way. But let's see, there wasn't really anything I didn't like. The one thing I would say I would have liked more of, I think, was more humor. I know humor is really subjective, but I could have used a bit more of it throughout the story, I think, to help, because the overall, the voice and style was very serious. I'm not saying it had no humor, but it didn't really have any, of that until much later in the story. So there were some points where I thought about switching to a different book for a while just to get something a bit lighter. So a few warnings, I guess, that I would want. I do think the story ends well, but it does have some dashes of tragedy, since it's kind of a mixture of romance lines and tragic love stories, as well as small triumphs, I guess, that you have in a lot of family trauma.